today we're going to focus in on the and what the craft is, particularly for beginners, the foundation work that needs to be done, and the patience we have in executing the craft. Kind of dealing with the instant gratification of culture as it is today. And so I brought Anna on. She is a wonderful voice. And as you guys know, in this show, I'm trying to bring in the new voices, not just the same old talking heads that talk about everything all over the place all the time. And so, Anna, thank you for joining me. I'm excited to
Hi.
have this conversation and talk about the craft and what it is you have to offer to beginners. And I'm excited. So, Anna, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the craft, what it is that brought you here, and why you're passionate about the topic of helping beginners.
So, hi, I'm Anna, based from the Philippines, and I've been more or less doing the craft for close to 15 years. And as a person who is, well, a bit older than how usual beginner witches would be, I provide some mentorship to those who are just beginning in the craft. I usually help them with the basics, the foundation work, how to establish your practice, and essentially how you can elevate your practice to the next level. I'm also both a teacher and a student of the craft myself. So yeah, I think that covers it up. Just wanna have a quick correction. I am a devotee of Artemis, not Lilith. Lilith is one of the main deities that I work with, but I am devoted to Artemis.
Right. My bad. My bad. And it's one of those it's one of those things that's easy to mess up, right? When we work with so many spirits.
The list. I really do. I currently work with around 10, actively working with around, I think, 10 deities. That's
Okay.
why I needed the list.
I think more often than not, my devotional practice as well is centered around a dozen. Some come in at a time and they stay for a time and then they leave, and that work kind of ceases to be. And then there's the personalities that stick around in my practice long term. They feel like long term partners instead of those that come in and teach me a lesson for 6 months or even 2
A
months
year,
at a time
year,
sometimes.
and then they leave.
Hmm.
Actually, mine is on a bit of the smaller scale. My friend actually she's currently actively working with around 20 deities or so. And they
Okay.
usually pop into her head most of times. So yeah, I clearly understand that there are just some deities or some spirits that just come into our lives just for maybe a reason to teach, to
Hmm.
let you experience something, or maybe just to let you know who you are, elevate your own self to your higher self. But yeah, let's go back to the topic about beginner witches. Or as what I call it when I teach, it's Witchcraft 101.
So tell us a little bit about what that looks like for you when someone engages you and says, "Hey, you clearly are doing this. You're clearly working in this vein.
Mm-hmm.
Teach me everything." Like, what is that process like for you when someone comes to you?
Okay. So the latest one that I've got is actually a friend of mine who has been thinking about working with a specific deity. The goddess Hecate, actually. So
Hmm.
he approached me and said, "Hey, do you have any starting point for me?" And I was like, I might need to ask more questions. I usually ask about what are your intents on why you want to pursue the craft? Are there specific things that you want to learn? Are there any specific things that you would like to know more about. Essentially, I treat it as how I would teach a college course. I want to know your expectations. I want to know what you plan on
Mm-hmm.
pursuing afterwards so I can tailor fit what I have or the resources that I have for you so you can at least achieve some at least some of those expectations.
Right.
So yeah,
That's
I know I make it sound a bit un it's not unhinged, but I make it sound a bit clinical. Uh, But
well.
yeah.
I don't think so. I think asking those kind of questions and getting um kind of specific about it is
Mm-hmm.
important, right? The
Yeah,
why behind what you're doing is incredibly important.
of course.
And people miss that more often than not. If you don't have a reason for doing
Huh?
this, like a really good foundational reason for doing this, I question why you should do it at all more often than not. Right?
It's
There's
more of
plenty of people.
there's a lot of people, and I say this based on experience. There's a lot of people who want to learn the craft to usually lure someone in, or they want to do revenge, or
Mhm,
they want to make themselves rich. And
mhm,
while all three of those are very valid reasons, it's not it shouldn't be the only reason for you to pursue in a long-term commitment. I always highlight that the craft is not a short-term thing. It
mhm,
is a commitment that would span years, that would span hours of you reading up, practicing, getting beat down. It's that. It's not just something
mhm.
that you say, nope, this is not for me. I'm a head out. It's
Yeah.
not that. There's I okay. I've been talking to a number of new witches over the years. I mean, 15 years in, so there's about
Mhm,
to be a lot of people that I've been working with. So there are some of them. When I tell them point blank that, you know, you have to do more of this, you have to read more of this. And all I always say, I'm asking you to do all of these things that, for example, like read a book, practice shuffling your deck, or practice your runes. It's not for me.
mhm,
It's never for me. It's
mhm,
for them. And they always,
mhm,
some of them at least get telling me, no, I think it's unnecessary for my practice. And I'm like, you said you want to do this. You said you want to achieve this. Why are you skimping out on this specific task? And they just say, no, I
mhm.
think that's not for me. I mean, it could be because their learning method is not the same as my teaching method. But most of the time, it's like I don't want to give a lot more than what I could have given.
Mhm.
So it's one of those things that, of course, you cannot force a person to stay. Obviously, we're all about free will.
Mhm.
But it's more of them thinking about that, and me when everything's said and done, thinking to myself that is it possible that they did not have a foundational reason on starting the craft at all?
Mhm.
Like
Right.
for me,
And
go ahead.
I think I think sometimes that's a key um gate or portal for them, right? If somebody comes to you and they say, "I want to learn the craft," you
Mhm.
ask them what their reason is, and if their reason is some short-term gain, some short-term material gain, they're like, I just want to make a lot of money and I don't want to put the time and effort in." Okay, well, find a sorcerer, right? Like, find somebody who will
I
perform a
mean,
spell for
you
you.
could if you want to, you can hire me. I
Yeah,
do
you can
those.
hire. I do that for you, but the craft is not something you need to learn, right? And so the craft is a devotional practice in and of itself, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
I may be using the craft to provide material gains for myself in
Mm-hmm.
spell casting, in some ritual work, but ultimately that is not my aim, right? That's not my
That
why.
is
My
one
why
of the
isn't.
benefits. That's
Yes,
that's
it's a side effect,
one
right?
of it's a side effect essentially. Sure, you can get a lot of things from the craft. You can get a lot of physical and material gains. I mean, it was through a beautification spell that I got the zits off my face. Really.
Mm.
But at the end of it all, it's always about me connecting with the spirits and the deities that I work with. It's me knowing them. It's me devoting my time, my effort to them. It's me giving out the effort that
Mm-hmm.
I I voluntarily give out so that I can enrich this, not just a physical or a spiritual, but possibly a metaphysical connection that you have with them.
Mm-hmm.
While the perks are really good, you don't just get the perk by not spending something or exchanging something in return. As what I always tell to those that I teach, for you to gain experience or knowledge in something, you have to give up something too. Could be time,
Mm-hmm.
could be a social attending social functions, could be sleep, especially with people who devote with the either the infernals or the underworld gods. They
Mm-hmm.
always they always lack in sleep. So you have to exchange one thing or another. And
Mm-hmm.
most beginner witches, not I'm not generalizing everyone, but some beginner witches think that reading a book or two is all it takes, or
Mm-hmm.
doing a ritual once or twice is all it takes. No,
Mm-hmm.
I have to put a stern no on that, all because the craft is in well, what I would say from my background as a researcher, it's theory and practice at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
While you read up on things, while you study things, you need to put them into practice as well for them to work, for you to know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just you reading up on, say, Pinterest board about spells and shit. It's not just that. It's you studying why this herb has to be in this spell. Like, say, for a protection spell. Why the need for, say, basil? Why the need, say,
Mm-hmm.
for rosemary?
Mm-hmm.
You have to know that so that, well, I think we have brushed about up on this earlier about making your own things, your spells,
Mm-hmm.
rituals. It's essential. I'm not saying that it's the
Mm-hmm.
only thing that you have to learn, but it's one of those essential things. And most beginner witches forgo on the research. They just want a spell and then, bam, it's done. I can no
Mm-hmm.
longer count how many beginner witches have approached me for, say, hey, can I borrow a protection spell? And I'm like, okay, what do you need it for? And they'll say that, hey, you just, I don't want somebody lingering near me. And I'll be like, you don't need just a protection spell. You need a banishment spell as well. And they'll be like,
Mm-hmm.
what the difference? And it's just one of those things that tick me.
Well, there is a lot to learn, and
Part. I would agree
quite
with you on
quite
that.
yeah, quite simply, the books don't lay it all out there, right? And they can't, and so it's not necessarily a fault of, say, the books, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the
It's
things that
only
I
you
find
use
more.
the
Yeah,
information from the books. I mean,
exactly.
sure, there is a book that can guide you how to understand the meanings of the cards, the tarot cards, but
Mm-hmm.
you'll never know how this would work with your intuition or how you would work your intuition through divination if you're not shuffling or pulling out a card every now and then, doing a spread every now and then. As part of that, as much as references can help you, you need to do in the work, which can also be vice versa. You can do in like physical work, you shuffle and all of that. But if you do not read or you do not educate yourself, it's just action. There is no basis on it. So
Well,
you
it's a
need to,
relationship.
yes,
A relationship
you
requires
both
effort.
have
It requires
basis and
sacrifice.
of course,
Yeah.
I would really agree with you on that.
Yeah. So you need to have those relationships. It's like you're talking about this earlier about why is basil used in this protection spell? Well,
Exactly.
why don't you sit down with basil for a little while, literally, like, and meditate on it. Speak to it. Ask it what it has to say. Why is it that you're being used here? Part of it is reading the books, right? Okay, so and so says basil does this. So and so also agrees that, okay, that's great. That's the first level of research. For me,
Mhm.
it's always developing a relationship with that, right? And that's a difficult thing for people because when they come to the craft, more often than not, they're not animistic. They're not feeling that everything has a spirit, right? A
Yep.
plant? I'm supposed to talk to a plant? Yeah, fuck yeah, you're supposed to talk to a
Are
plant.
you supposed to
Absolutely.
talk to a plant when it comes to a ritual? Because I personally, I do this. This might be a bit informal, but humor me. Every single time that I do a ritual, could it, may it be candle magic, a spell, or whatever, I always hold what I need in my hand, say,
Mm.
hey, hey, Rosemary, hey, I know that you have protective properties. Can you help me in this spell? Because I am creating a protection jar for myself. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be hurt, and I would love for you to help me in doing this to protect myself. Some
Mm-hmm.
people do not get why it should be done. Why you should be connecting with the things that you're going to use in spell work, ritual work, whatever you might call it. That's one thing, which is where foundation work comes in. You're
Mm-hmm.
also questioning things if you already know. Like, okay, so there are certain people that talk to me, obviously, because teacher. So there are some people who talk to me and ask me, hey, what are some good protection herbs? And I usually just say sea salt, basil. If you want to make it a bit more spicy, chili.
Mm-hmm.
Never have I heard in all of the years that I have been talking to people in and out in online and in face to face. There's only like at least a handful of times that I was asked, why do you need to include this? More so the responses are commonly, yeah, okay, thanks. I'm going to use this in a spell. And I'm like, okay, not everyone is as inquisitive as me or likes to ask a lot of questions, but you do
Mm-hmm.
realize you have to know what they would do. What if it's say someone's making a love working and then they're just going to base on what I say. Like, okay, put cemetery dirt in it so that your love will never die. And I'll be like, okay. Which is a very, very not really a wrong thing, but it's an unwise thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Just accept that the pieces of the spell are aligned, right? There's
Yes.
there's a lot of misinformation about that, right? And if you're not careful, you're either, producing something that's not going to function properly, something that's not totally aligned with your aim,
Or
or
your
worse,
intention.
somebody has snuck something in there that's
Okay,
not
that
going to
can
be
help for you.
worse than helpful. It's going to be wrong, and that's part of it, right? You have to know these things for your own good. But there's something else. There's something else in there that I think is really vital. We have a mindset in the modern world of a spell being like constructed or built, like 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 with Legos or something, right? I take this and I do this, and it's just a piece, right? It's not alive. Whereas within the craft, I think you have to have a bit of a mindset shift to this thing is something that's working with me, not I'm using it to produce an effect. It's not chemistry. It's not engineering. It is a dance. It is a sacred communication, a relationship between these things
It's not just
that
that
is
simple thing that you would just say, hey, I'm going to use you. You're going to help me.
Mhm,
It's something more similar to, hey, I am respectfully asking for you to help
mhm,
me, and would it be okay for you to contribute to what I
mhm,
have worked on so
exactly.
that this would be a success? It's more like that. Sometimes people treat, especially some beginner witches, always treat spell ingredients, as just something that you have to infuse with your energy. You have to
Mhm,
put in a specific thing, use in a specific ritual, in a specific spell, without ever even knowing why it's there in the first place.
mhm,
I've encountered a lot of those. And that's very, very common thing, all because most beginners are basing their knowledge on what they can easily consume.
mhm,
Say quick videos, short videos, or like a one-page article. But knowing the craft is not as you reading a lot of tomes, talking to a lot of people about things. You have to practice what you've learned for you to,
mhm,
if not master it, at least have a grasp of it. It's not just like watching, say, a video showing a spell and you're going to copy it. It's not as simple as that.
yeah.
I've had more than 5 or more than 6 encounters with beginner witches that I talk to face to face. And they tell me that they have found this spell and they proudly show it to me. Say, ate. Ate in Filipino is older sister. It's usually a term of respect. They'll be like, ate, look at this. I think I'm going to do this in the new moon. And they'll have this very, very self-satisfied smirk on their face. And I'll be like, have you researched what those ingredients are? And they'll be like, but it produces this effect. And I'll reply, yes, I understand. I understand because at some point I have a grasp of what these things are supposed to be. But do you? And they're going to be quiet. And that says something about the importance of foundation work. You and I have talked
Mhm,
about this couple of, I think, a week ago. Foundation work is very important in the sense that you wouldn't, say, cook something without knowing what they're used to or were used for, right?
mhm,
You wouldn't use wine in a dish if you don't know that it could go up in flames. That's the same thing with the craft. You're supposed to research on what things or what herbs or even what deities you're going to have to work with for you to establish a working relationship with them, a very good working relationship with them. It's
mhm,
not all these casting spells or pulling the deck or whatever. It's not just that. It's one of the important things, yeah. But knowing is a very important thing as well, which
mhm,
most people, or at least some beginner witches skimp on. And I honestly, I find it sad I find it sad that
It is.
most people just go jump the gun. They start casting spells, they start doing rituals without even knowing why these specific items are listed down in a spell or in a ritual. I've had more than a couple of questions about doing a ritual. They're going to ask me, "Hey, why do you put coffee in it? Why do you?"
To make it go faster.
Yep, they're going to ask me that, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Have you read the book list that I sent you earlier? There's actually this very very good book resource list that I've gotten from a creator. Her TikTok name is at spirituality. Hannah Wall is very good content. I recommend for beginner witches. She has this resource list that I have saved, and it's one of the things that I give out to those who are barely entering that craft.
Okay.
And these I usually supplement with my own recommendations based on what they're working on. And more often than not, they skip on it. They just say, "Hey, what's the username of this creator?" And I'll be like, this is her username, or this is their username. And what they're going to do is they're just going to watch the videos. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not really what I was asking you to do. Later, later on, they always go back to me. Not, I'm not saying this in an arrogant manner. Sorry if it sounds that way. But they always go back. They circle back to me and then tell me, why did my spell or ritual work? And I'll be asking them, what, did you change anything? Did you give, or did you did you not infuse it with your energy, with your intent, things like that? And they'll be telling me, some of them will tell me, I substituted this for this. And I'm like, okay, do you know the correspondence of what you substituted? And they'll be like, oh, a specific article on the internet said, while I'm open to
Yeah.
substitutions, no problem about it. It's more of, you have to know why you have to substitute. You have to know
Mm-hmm.
why you have to change or adjust. Adjusting is not a problem. It's more of what you're adjusting with, or what you're substituting with, is the problem. You really should know what.
Well, yeah, and this speaks to a lack of patience in general.
Yes.
And that's a cultural thing. It's something that's ingrained in our society. We're such instant gratification um, suckers. We're just suckers for 2-day Amazon delivery. You know, everything has to be now, and it speaks
Everything has to
to
be instant, and
yeah,
it's understandable.
instant and now and easy, right? And so it's like the videos. I don't want to put in the time to read this book. I'd rather just watch this video. That's the attitude that people have. And
Mhm.
unfortunately for them, that's not how this works. And it's more detrimental to them in the long run, I think, if they're going to approach it that way. If you take a spell off the internet and start trying to work with it without even understanding how any of this flows together, not building a
Why
relationship with any
things
of
are
the
specific
spirits
about
there,
it. Yeah.
it's not going to work. And then you're going to be like, well, this is bullshit and I'm done, you know? And I mean, for me personally, I spent years just studying before I ever even committed to working on a spell, before I
Mhm.
even committed to a ritual, right? I spent years with my nose in books so that I could understand it. Part of that for me was a fear. It was a part of deconstruction, right? And it was like,
Yes, clearly
I,
that
I don't want to say the wrong words. I don't want to use the wrong thing. I don't want to invite the wrong
it's more
energies. And I
word
had
used to to confirming to a specific ideology. Like, um, I was a former Catholic. I haven't been practicing for years, so it's more. okay, so just quick background on this. I used to serve at a church. Yeah, I
Mhm.
went away. But there was still that thing that I'm still deconstructing until now. That if I miss like a day or a day of two of devotionals, I'm going to get my ass fried.
Yes.
And that is something that some of the new witches or the beginner witches have to do as well. Deconstructing is, now that you've mentioned it, it's actually a very hard process. It would
Mhm.
take years at the very least.
Yeah.
But there are some witches, there are some people, and I've been known to do this in a way or another, even though it's been more than a decade of me practicing. There are still times that, oh, I forgot to do this, I forgot to do that. Say, well, will Artemis be mad if I forgot to do her devotionals and read her a hymn today? Which actually really stems from the belief that, like, for example, like I'm not dissing on the Christian or the Catholic gods or any religious gods at all. It's more of, it comes from the idea of organized religion that you have to do things so that you are appreciated by the god or the gods that you work with, which in the
Mhm.
craft, as we both know, it really doesn't work that way. They do not feel that way.
Mhm.
You may it, it's fine.
Some are more demanding than others, but yeah, ultimately, the relationship is not one of you must do this or suffer punishment. It's
You'd be thrown
it's some
into cap for it, really.
yeah. Although some are more persnickety than others. Me personally, working with Aphrodite, Venus, there's an intense more demand there for worship in some regards, and, and that's just
Yeah.
her personality. And that's okay with me. But other spirits, they're like, it's just like hanging out with friends, really, right? Like there is a sense of reverence that needs to occur, but I
Mm-hmm.
also think that reverence is also extended the other direction, right? The gods, the deities, the spirits, they want to work with us. They
They work
don't
with
feel
it's a
annoyed.
two-way street. It's not a one-way thing like you devote to them
Mhm.
and that's just it. It's more of you
Yeah,
devote
no,
to them and they give you things that you might necessarily not want to hear. I mean,
exactly.
in between
It's like a good
Artemis
friend.
and Lilith, in between just the both of them, I've already heard a lot of things that I did not want to hear Aleka, but I have to learn it. That's one thing. It's a give and take. You honor them,
Hmm.
you devote to them, and in return, if not, well, not exactly in return, they help you hone your abilities. They help
Hmm.
you in, say, work, like what I do with the lady Athena. She helps me at work,
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean, it's a give and take, but it's a respectful type of give and take.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And that's the way everything should be approached, right? Everything from the all the materia that you work with, right? Whether that's a stone or a
On Mount
plant or an
Herb.
animal matter or an herb, all of those, they have a piece in this too. There's a reverence that needs to be extended from your side and an understanding
It's
that
something a
together
basic
we're working.
thing. You just do not, say, grab a cinnamon stick off the supermarket or whatever, and you just add it, say, to an abundance bowl or a money bowl
Hmm.
without asking for it contribute. You are
Hmm.
respectfully asking them to imbue whatever you're working with the same intent that you plan to.
Hmm.
That has to be raised one way or another. That while they could help, they cannot as well unless you
Hmm.
ask them respectfully, ask them decently. They are not just
Hmm.
ingredients. They are
Exactly.
representations of the things that you intend to have.
Hmm. In a way, in a way, being the spellcaster, being the witch at the center of all of this, it's
Mm-hmm.
networking, right? If you
Yep.
treat everything in the spell, every component as a person, and treat them with the same respect that you want to be treated with, that's essentially what you are doing. You're bringing a whole bunch of people together. You're saying, hey, Athena, come on over here. Hey, cinnamon stick, come on over here. Whatever your ingredients are. And you're
Even in
saying, hey, can we play together in this box? And can we create an experience together? And we produce an experience. This isn't necessarily just for me either, right? While my intent might be self-guided or self-directed, hey, I want to bring more abundance into my life. Guess what? It's not just for you. This is also going to help out whoever you're bringing into that process, that
mm-hmm.
God, that plant spirit, this animal spirit, whichever one that you're working with is also invested in the process. It's not like I'm asking them to do something that they don't want to do, right? It's not
Or
like I'm
if you
saying, hey,
respectfully
you've got
asking
to
for
do
them to do
this.
good.
Yeah. No, in fact, more often than not, they're getting something out of it too. They're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I want to work with this. And so that
I know
respect
this
needs
might
to be given.
sound I know this might sound very mean, but every single time that I do an abundance spell, I talk to what I call the family members. I mean, they've
Mm,
been hanging around in my house for God knows how long. So essentially, they're part of the family. I tell them, hey, I have this money bowl assembled, especially during the new moons or first of the month. I ask them, hey, can you help me in making this thing work? I've already asked the ingredients to do their at least to contribute. Can you help here? So say I can buy a new deck for you,
hmm
or I can buy a new statue for you.
Yeah, there's that. There's that. It's almost bartering sometimes. Hey, help me
Yeah,
out and I'll scratch your back. But that's what the spirits want too. They want to scratch our back. There is a desire from that end of things, right? And I think that's one
but
thing
you
that
have
I
to
struggled with
verbalize it.
really early on.
You have to verbalize it. You have to
Mhm,
ask them directly. Ask them with respect, with with a reverence that you can muster. You
mhm.
have to make sure that everything that you ask of anything actually must be full of reverence and respect. It always should come from a place of respect. That
Absolutely.
that's what some people forget. That you're not just there. Like even in reading the deck, I actually have this experience of having a person over, and she wanted to have her spread read. And I'm like,
Mhm,
okay, just give me a couple of minutes. I just need to ask help. And she was thinking that I would be asking help like from a book or a person. And she had this very, very puzzled look on her face when I pulled out my deck and I started infusing it with my energy. And I was essentially asking it, na, hey, this person who is near me is asking for things regarding this, regarding that. Would it be okay for you to help me show me what are the messages that you want to give out? And most people don't understand that. Why they need to ask for something when it's already there? And I always tell them that
mhm,
they're not just tools. You are a messenger. You're a conduit.
mhm,
So you must as well include that specific tool in essentially your job of being a conduit or being a channel. Even in my own
mhm,
prayers when I read the deck, when I ask for my patroness's advice, I always tell her, let me be your conduit. Let
mhm.
this deck be a channel of your divine insights, thoughts, and advices. I've never not failed, or rather, I never failed to use that every single time. And it's not just
Right.
me honoring my patroness with her wisdom. It's more about me also honoring the deck as a channel of her work. Most beginner witches just think that the deck is something that you don't consecrate, something that is just merely a tool.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen beginner witches that rely on an app, the tarot apps.
Mm-hmm.
I have personally no problem with tarot apps. There is this one that I've been using for years, and I've been using it as a source of information. More like when I forget the meaning of a specific card, which
Mm-hmm.
is more often than I could say without humiliating myself. But yeah, but I specifically advise them. Sure, download the tarot deck app for you to familiarize yourself. It's fine, but you shouldn't like define. You shouldn't like define your question or whatever with the answers that are given there or the deck that's pulled up there. All because practically it's run by an algorithm. It's run by something. No one still beats, of course, the deck, but you shouldn't rely on it too much. You should always take things with a grain of salt.
Right.
There's this specific anecdote that I can share. I hope, if it's okay,
Go
of
for it.
a girl that I know. And she told us, it was in a group setting, that she was going to tell her dad, who is not really happy or not really keen on knowing that she was a witch. All because the tarot deck app said so. So I thought, okay, let me volunteer my service. I will pull a deck from you. I got the deck, the occult deck, best deck to channel Lord Lucifer. He likes that deck. And it was not an entirely negative spread. Essentially, the spread said, if you tell him now, it's going to be bad. But later on, he can accept or tolerate, whichever. But
Mm-hmm.
it's going to result into a negative situation right now. If you still want to push it right now. She still did so. And then reported to us that she's crying because there was a negative reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'd rather not say anything. Otherwise, I'll get into a fight. I'd rather not. But yeah, it's one of those instances that a background in the craft is necessary. Because you know that if you're asking for a yes no thing or a yes no spread, the card that you pull up, it's not just going to be like, it's a yes, it's a no, it's a maybe. It's a yes
Mm-hmm.
with underlying explanation. It's a no
Right.
with underlying explanation. It's a conditional yes or a conditional no if there are certain situations outlined. It's not black and white.
No, nothing ever is, right? And that's one of the great teachings that you will get when you dive into this and study it like really,
When you
really
devote time
study it.
to one of those that you're going to get.
Exactly. So yeah, we've talked about devotion, putting in the work, putting in the time, right? Changing mindset, right? Kind of
Yes.
respecting, reverence, the fact that all these things are persons in and of themselves that we're
Mm-hmm.
working with. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
kind of there's that piece. There's
Mm-hmm.
another piece that I think often gets missed in the foundational work, and that is working with the rhythms of the natural world, right? So eh, witchcraft in and of itself is very nature based in most
It's nature
traditions.
oriented, to say the very least.
Yes, and so ultimately, we're talking about you can't just treat every single day as if it was the same as the next day, right? There are
Yeah.
natural rhythms. Each day is different. Each hour is different. Each season is different. The way the moon is, how the planets are right now,
Mhm,
factor into what
mhm,
you're doing. And so it's
mhm.
very important to study and understand and sit with and be with
Yeah.
those natural cycles, not only externally, right, when you're watching
But
them
also
in the
internally.
external world, but how does it feel internally? What is it like for yourself
Yeah.
when the moon is full and it's August and it's hot and there's all this element of fire for you? Like, what is it? It's learning those natural rhythms and the elemental properties of them that really take you to the next level and also help you develop your intuition, right? Once you're in
Yes.
flow with those things, these spells become a lot easier,
Well,
right?
yeah.
Because I see this all the time. Somebody gets a spell, right? I'm gonna work
Mhm.
a love spell in the middle of the winter when I'm supposed to be focusing on introspection and myself, and but I want to attract somebody to myself. And I'm like, it might be best to wait on that spell. It might not be the time to
Yeah.
fire that bad boy off. Like,
I mean,
wait,
sure you can. Sure you can.
nature,
Obviously, you
what
can.
is the thing?
Sure you can. You can definitely do that. But the thing is,
You
it's
can,
not
of
going
course.
to have the best effect, the best way that
Exactly.
you have interacted on. Like, for example, there was this person who has hired me to do a banishment ritual. And I usually do banishments on a full moon together with protection.
Hmm.
And this person told me that, hey, can you do it during the full moon? And I'm like, can, but I don't really recommend. I really don't. And then there
Hmm.
was and then there was this person who wanted me to do a love spell for her on a Tuesday. And I was like, okay. For context, I'm saying this from all the people who have ordered services directly from me or from my shop. Lux et Tenebrae, the Divine Workings. It means light and dark in
Hmm.
Italian. I share it with a friend of mine who is also a witch. There is this one person who has ordered a manifestation ritual from us. And I'm like, okay, it's already listed there, the schedules for what specific ritual is going to be performed on what day.
Hmm.
And this specific person ordered a career, or I think it was a career, money, and luck manifestation. So I said, sure, I can do that on a Monday or a Sunday.
Hmm.
So no, can you like do it on a Wednesday because Wednesday is my birthday? And I'm like, I can. Of course I can. But I would recommend not to. Same thing with the
Hmm.
person who ordered a self-love manifestation for herself. She wanted me to do it on a Sunday so she can um have it while she's having self-love thing going on. And like I suggest I do this on a Friday. Fridays I devote to Mother Lilith, and that's the only day of the week that I give time for love workings, either self-love, attraction, whatever you might call it. So I would recommend that I can do this the following Friday because it's going to coincide with the day that I use for devotionals and love workings. It would be a bit more powerful. A bit. It might work a bit more better. So that's what I'm telling her. And she said no, she wanted it ASAP. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Fine. Against my it was against my better judgment. But
Hmm.
the customer is always right. I can say no.
Right?
It's
Yeah,
just
that
one of those.
patience is critical.
Yeah. I mean, you won't do you won't blow cinnamon on your front door by the end of the month, right? You do it on the first day.
Mhm.
It's one of those things that's actually contradictory to the idea of instant gratification when learning about the craft. Since most people think that, hey, I know this, I can do this, it's fine. But you do have to realize that you also have to study timelines and other necessary things to make whatever you want to achieve work even more,
Exactly.
to make your intention or your intended purpose better or stronger, whatever you might want to, or to increase, elevate, whatever word you might want to use with it. But yeah, the idea. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Was going to say one of the best unintended consequences of that is that you gain a sense of peace in your life, which is worth more than anything that spell is going to give you, right? If you start to honor the natural cycles and learn patience, that pays dividends in your life and giving you peace in general, because you're like, not everything has to be right now. I don't have to be so stressed out about right now. Things will
You
come
can
to me in
always
due
have
time.
time. You can
Yeah,
always have
you've
time to
always
say
got.
that I can prepare better. I can
Mhm,
study a bit more so that come time that I'll be doing this ritual, this spell, this working, I am relaxed and I can be in the best state of mind so that
mhm,
my intentions, my manifestations will come through clearly and smoothly. That's
mhm,
the bad side effect of it all.
mhm.
It's only
And
secondary
it's
if you
empowering.
know it's a very powerful effect. There was this question that was raised to me and my business partner, when we opened locks. This person asked us, why do you have a timing on when your ritual's going to be scheduled? And we both replied at the same time, yeah, so that timing is better, we can prepare better, and the spell is going to work even more. We're both witches, so we both know. And
Yeah.
this person was like, I mean, can the customer like order it and have it done ASAP? And I'm like, yeah, but we would advise against it.
Mhm,
And there's always this lengthy explanation about patience, about knowing things, about practicing things that follows, which honestly, in my opinion, it's too tedious to say. It's a
yeah.
very long.
Let me educate you on the finer points of patience. Yes, that's a difficult question or difficult conversation to have with people. Okay, well, I think that's all good. We've got about 7 more minutes left here, and I want to make sure that we touch on everything that you want to touch
Sure,
on
sure.
specifically. So we've touched on patience, honoring the cycles, honoring the spirits themselves, that give and take
Making sure
relationship.
that you are informed in more ways than one.
Yep, we've gone over that. So what else is there that you like to speak about when it comes to entering the craft? What is something vital to you that has to be learned early on?
It's, well, keep an open mind.
Mm, openness in general.
Yes. When I started the craft, I actually did not know what I was entering.
I don't think many of us do.
I just knew back then that this belief system that I was in did not work for me.
Mhm,
And then a couple of years later, I was found by my patroness. Still giddy over it.
mm,
But yeah, and it's more of, there are things that I have done in the entirety and the duration of my craft that I would have shied away or did not even consider when I was starting. And yet they are the things that I'm good at. So keeping an open mind throughout the course of your journey entering the craft is essential. I mean, I could say as far as it's a requirement, really. You need to keep an open mind on things. I mean, 12-year-old
Mm,
me entering the craft did not really expect to work with infernals. I
yeah.
did not know what infernals are. And now I work with 3 or simply 4, I think.
It's it's never what you expect, right? So you're right.
Yeah.
Keep an open mind because I can like several of the most transformational pieces for me in regards to the craft or magic or this path in general have been things that I was like, what? I have to do what? Like for instance, when I first
Mhm.
journeyed to the underworld, to the lower world to find a power animal in a shamanic drumming journey, I was like, I'm thinking like, I want it to be like a wolf or maybe like an eagle or there's like all
Something
this
like that.
egoic stuff going on in my head, and then I get down there and I'm like, a bear? What? I'm not expecting it, right? And kind of like at first, kind of like no, but now, of course, this has developed into something so much more beautiful. And I would have never, in a million years, guessed that I'd be working with Aphrodite and all these sorts of things as well in such a heavy way as I am today. And so, keeping an open mind is just so vital because while you might have an aim or an aesthetic that you're trying to get at when you enter this, because I think everybody does, we're humans, right? We go,
Yes,
I
we
really
have
want
this
to work with
specific
this spirit.
expectation. There are specific expectations when you say, even in your years into the craft, you would expect that,
Hmm.
hey, since I am like physically I'm smart, maybe I can work with the lady Athena because, well, she's the
Yeah.
goddess of wisdom. There's that specific thing. Just imagine, I am not a very physical person. Really, I am the last physical person. Yet my patroness is Lady Artemis. And there's just some days when I am in my space, my working space, and I'll be thinking to myself, I still cannot understand why am I devoted to the goddess of the hunt and athleticism when I barely move myself.
Exactly.
It's one of those
It's
things.
never what we think. It's never what we think
Oh,
it's going to be. It's always something different.
it is. Also, when I started working with infernals, my first infernal is and well, I like her. I love her. Mother Lilith. As a person who has a very, very, very strong religious background for my own God, I never thought that I'd be working with a demon. I really, I really didn't even consider. I was thinking to myself, oh, demons are still bad.
Hmm.
Demons are still bad. I still had at some point, like in the early years of my practice, that I still had that mindset, still deconstructing. But later on in my practice, up to the present time, Mother Lilith has given me a lot of realizations that I could physically be unable to think or to realize on my own. And should I have closed my mind at the idea of working with infernals or with other deities or with other spirits that I don't find palatable? Putting it in air quotes.
Hmm.
Sorry. Should I have closed my mind on that or eat my practice on that? I could have missed out on things.
Hmm. Exactly.
I could
Exactly.
have
And
missed out.
that's key.
I could have missed out on knowing that there are things that I should stand up for. As you
Hmm.
might have noticed, I am a person who might like conflict, but I don't like screaming. And Mother Lilith essentially told me, you do realize that sometimes screaming is a part of a difficult conversation. And in that
Hmm.
difficult conversation, you should learn how to stand your ground.
Yeah.
And couple of weeks later, I she had me put that to good use.
Exactly. It's
Really, really
always
good
for a
use.
reason, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I were still stuck in that mindset of being closed, still thinking that, hey, this might not be for me because that's not what I'm used to, I would have missed out on knowing myself even more. I I would have missed out on making sure that I can set a healthy boundary should I have kept a closed mind. That's what I always tell those that I teach or those who seek my help. Always keep
Mm-hmm.
an open mind. It is through an open mind that you can explore a lot of things that you might think aren't good for you. A friend of mine, a very good person, Christian, really, a very good Christian. She's working with Lord Lucifer. Had she not kept an open mind, she would have missed out on how Lucifer is going to be a very, uh, I mean, at least in my opinion, a very sort of kind of level-headed person to talk with. She could have on somebody who would have told her, "Hey, I'm having a bad feeling about this. Would it be okay for you to listen to me and not do this?" That has saved my life hundreds of times, really. Had she not kept an open mind, she could have missed on that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sure.
Awesome.
Well, sure, it is scary. Keeping an open mind is scary.
It is.
It it's really really scary, but it's what essentially makes you a stronger person. At least stronger
Mm-hmm.
spiritually speaking. You're going to build up your spiritual strength because of it.
Yeah, you will. And I think it's if you're ever not growing, then you're stagnating, right? And so it's very important to be open to whatever path it is that you need to be on or could be potentially on in order to continue that expansion, in order to continue that growth.
We are
And
always sorry to interrupt, but as
yeah,
people who are into the craft, we are always supposed to be in a place that we're continuously growing. We are not
mhm,
stagnant people. This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is not accounting. This is not accounting. The theories that might work before, it could not work now. And
uh,
the craft is, I would say, something that continuously grows, that
mhm,
continuously has something new to offer to each and everyone who partakes of it. And that is something that needs to be said louder, especially to
mhm.
those who are just beginning their journey into the craft. It is
Right, yeah,
something
you're
that
never done. You're never going to be done.
it's still never done. I mean, you could have thought that after 15 years I have known a lot. But even I to myself, I know that I know some, but not exponential. And that's what makes the craft even more interesting. As they say in a commercial here in the Philippines, there's something new always every day.
I
And
like that.
while it is hard, it's really, I mean, the craft is hard. Let's not downplay that. It is. It's the idea of getting more information, more things for you to practice, to include in your own practice. It's what makes the craft worthwhile.
Mm, awesome. That's a good place for us to drop, I think, here. I think we've touched on some really awesome points, and I'll probably have to have you back on, Anna, because the conversations are never done, in my opinion, with these things. There's always so much more that we could talk about.
Okay.
But um, we've talked about the foundational pieces, keeping an open mind, having patience, devotion and
Definitely.
reverence, and all these things, and keeping yourself always growing and reading and
Yeah.
learning. And so those are all great foundational pieces. But tell the listeners where they can find you, Anna. A little bit more about your shop and your offerings, and just here's your elevator pitch to the listeners.
Okay. So you guys can reach me through my social media, TikTok, Instagram, at Tarot Huntress, also on Threads. And you can find my shop at on Facebook. It's Lux at Tenebri Divine Workings. We offer a lot of things, and we can maybe make something one for you that would suit your intention.
And of course, I'll put all that in the show notes as well. So anywhere you guys consume this, you'll be able to see Anna's stuff. And of course, where we post all this on magic.social, we'll have those links as well. So if you're interested in learning more about Anna, please check out wherever you consume this show. Anna, thank you so much for joining me on this. It's
Thank you
been
for having me.
wonderful. I always love having conversations. And like I said, I'll probably have to have you back because